and welcome to the Homestead. Well, this morning I am finishing up a task that I started last night, and we are well into the first week of August. It's pretty much our last chance to get anything sprouted and growing before it gets too cold and things slow down this fall. So I am actually working on making seed tape for lettuce and things like that. So I wanted to show you my process and what I do to make seed tape. It's very simple. Anybody can do it. All you need is a little bit of toilet paper and flour and water, and then of course your seeds. So I'm going to show you what I've done and show you what you can do as well. Now this idea is not original to me. I actually looked it up on YouTube to see what I needed to do to learn how to do this. But like I said, you have a lightweight toilet paper. You can use either single-ply or two-ply, and then you of course can split your plies as long as you're gentle with it. This happens to be single-ply RV or camper toilet paper we have left over from living in our camper last year. So I have lots of it still on hand, and that's what I'm using today. And then, as I said, you also need some all-purpose flour. This is actually my Play-Doh flour. It's just the cheapest stuff you can buy. And I'm going to be making a half cup, equal parts, half a cup of flour and half a cup of water. And that's just dependent upon how thick you want this glue solution to be. So I'm actually going to be making it a little bit thinner, and that will allow me to put it into a squeeze bottle. Now you can do this two different ways. You can either put it in a squeeze bottle. I have an old glue bottle or a squeeze bottle, or you can also use like an old chopstick or a skewer stick or something like that. I prefer the squeeze bottle. I'm just not patient enough to dip and put it on the paper. But I'll show you my process, and I will be getting lettuce seed, and I also have some spinach seed to put into this seed tape. Now, our winds here in Wyoming are quite strong, so planting any small seeds like lettuce or carrots or things like that is quite difficult. Now you want to mix this paste. That's essentially what this is flour and water paste. You want to mix it until it's pretty smooth if you're going to put it into a squeeze bottle. If you're just dipping it out with a stick, then you would want more equal parts and it would be thicker than what you're seeing, this consistency. You want it about the thickness of pancake batter. I already have some mixed up, so I'm going to show you my actual laying out the toilet paper and getting the seeds put down on the paper. So for my lettuce, to allow me to do rows that are kind of tight against each other, I actually take a couple of sheets of paper and put my dots of glue on them. Now these little dots are about 4 inches apart, so this will grow up pretty close. Another thing you can do is you can stagger them, and I will show you that on the spinach. So you can see it's pretty simple just to put a little dab of this flour water paste in kind of the middle of each square. And it is hard to see the little squares in this particular sheet of paper. Other papers would possibly be simpler, but this works. And I've got my black seed Simpson seeds. And you don't want to put too many seeds in each spot simply because you end up with overcrowding. But this is really simple. I just pour them in my hand. There's no wind that I'm having to contend with. And I just drop a few seeds directly on the flour water mixture. Now this particular set of seeds I won't actually plant out because the glue would not be dry, but I do have a bunch that I made up last night, and I'll show you how I put those out. My early spring, well, I say early spring, first week of June, lettuce seeds I also did this with, and they did very well. None of the seeds migrated in the soil, and none of the seeds blew away. They did very well. Unfortunately, the hail we had here a couple of evenings ago decimated the last of my mature lettuce. I did leave a few out there to go to seed in hopes that I can gather some of my own seed rather than purchasing new next year. But that's why I'm hurrying up and getting this in the ground. Hopefully we will get some more lettuce before it gets too cold. The extra back away. A little bit of lettuce seed on the counter won't hurt anything. And then all you do is fold the paper over on itself, and it sticks it down on both sides through the glue paste mixture, and the seeds are sandwiched in there and they cannot get out. Now, as I said, you could use single ply as this is, or double ply. And then what I do, let's see, where's my pens? Then you want to make sure that somehow you mark what you have put inside of this paper. It becomes very confusing if you're doing 4, 5, 6 varieties. And you know, write whatever you want, the whole variety name or whatever. And that way there's no confusion, and you plant it where you want it to be. Now I'll show you what I did with the spinach last evening. This is exactly what I did last evening with my spinach. And the lettuce I did in the single rows because I wanted to be able to plant more things in a row more closely than if I had done it 2 rows on a single sheet of paper. So on the spinach, I actually do 2 dots in each square, kind of on a diagonal, kind of toward the corners. And then what you'll do is you put the seeds down into the glue spots and then lay a secondary sheet of paper over the top of it, since you obviously would not be able to fold your paper. Now, spinach is not really a small seed, however, it is tedious to plant if you're trying to spread it out. So that's the purpose of putting it here on these seed tape papers. You can see how quickly this goes rather than sticking a stick into the solution. But of course, if you do not have a squeeze bottle, then a stick or a stripped off cotton swab would also work to apply this paste to the paper. And like I said, if you're putting it into a squeeze bottle, it is important to get it as lump free as possible, for the obvious reason that your tip will become clogged otherwise. Now I just have the regular Bloomsdale long-standing spinach. It's a good all-around spinach, although my early crop, it actually bolted at 30 days. So I had to harvest it quite quickly compared to what I'm accustomed to. And I am planting multiple seeds in one spot to allow it to be a kind of a clump to be harvested together. 2 or 3 seeds is more than enough. You don't want to put too many in one spot. So as I said, you can either put a single sheet down and fold it over, like I did with the lettuce, or you can do like a double row on the full sheet of paper and cover it up with a second piece, or the second ply if you're using 2-ply. Just make sure that you are gentle if you're using a 2-ply paper, because those layers are usually quite thin. And again, make sure that you mark them however you like, but you want to make sure that there's no confusion as to what it is in the paper. You might remember, but then of course if you make the seed tape days or weeks or months ahead of time, you probably will not remember. This is a great project to do during the winter months. So when you're dying to work in your garden, this is a good project for you to do. Go ahead and get your seeds in the winter, or maybe you have seeds left over from a previous season, and this is a great project to get ready your really small seeds, especially things like lettuce and carrots, even some of your brassicas that you want to plant really early. Sometimes the ground is just not conducive to sprinkling tiny little seeds at any given spacing, so this is a good project for you to do ahead of time. So in just a little bit I will take you out to the garden and I will show you how I put these out in the soil into the beds, and maybe I'll get some help from the kids. I don't know, we'll see. Well, it's actually the next evening. It just got too hot yesterday by the time I got everything set up and ready to go. So I decided to use this afternoon to weed additional spots for more seeds to be replanted. It is getting very late in the season, so I may only get baby greens out of some of these items, but I want to take the chance and go ahead and get them in the ground. So I'm going to show you how I plant these homemade seed tape in the garden. The lettuce that I pulled up here just a couple of days ago, the seed had been planted about 8 weeks ago, and when I cultivated the soil there was no signs of any type of tissue paper, toilet paper, or anything. So the particular RV toilet paper worked very well. It broke down in the soil, and that's the whole point. You don't want to leave any debris in your garden soil. So I'm going to show you what I do, and that way you can do it in your own garden. Now you can see that I have a bucket of garden soil, and this bucket is going to be my top dressing to put over paper. These are all very small seeds, so it will not take very much, but you do have to have some to not only weigh the paper down, but also obviously you have to cover your seeds as well. Now you can see, once my papers are all dry, you can roll the whole entire stack up and put an elastic around it, keep it together, and tonight it's actually absolutely beautiful. It's not very windy, it's a little breezy, it's finally cooling off, so I'm not having any issues. When we first planted our first batch of lettuce, we basically laid it down as fast as we could and put dirt on it because it was blowing away. But you know, there's hardly any wind, so that's really nice for here. Now these are 4-foot sections of paper, which makes them very manageable for my kitchen countertop. And when I measured these papers, I actually used a piece of painter's tape on my counter so that I could not be guessing or having different lengths of paper, and it worked really, really well. Now these seed tapes, the volume of them is based upon what seeds I had left over. So like my igloo lettuce, I only had 2 strips worth or 8 feet of seed tape available. So it just depends on what you're wanting to fill up with, or how much space you have, how many seeds you have left. A project like this, it is just completely up to what you want to do, what you're looking for to plant in your garden. So you can see how I have the paper lined out. Makes for nice straight rows. And as I said, it's beautifully still this evening. So I'm going to show you how I cover the seed. Now this is lettuce and brassicas, so they do not need a whole lot of covering. Pretty much if you've covered the paper, you've covered it enough. It would be better to be topping this off with compost, fine compost, but I don't happen to have any on hand again. Maybe next year. And because the seed tape completely encloses your seeds, you don't have to worry about them getting lost down in the soil or anything. And that's it. That's how simple it is. You can cover these with compost, or maybe if you had some potting mix you wanted to use up, like I did earlier in the season. But you just have to cover up the paper, and then when you water it, then of course all of this fluffy earth actually flattens down some more. Thank you for stopping by the homestead. We hope you enjoyed this informative video. And if you like our videos, please like them. If you have not subscribed to our channel yet, please do so while you're here. And as always, we hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.